quick kind of overview of the features we have, and then I'll dig into some of the more recent ones. We shipped the first version of the product, version 5.5. We follow vSphere version naming, so that's why the numbers start from 5.5. Back in March 2014, our goal back then is to have a very robust product which delivers really high performance with an extensive beta release. As I mentioned earlier to Justin, I believe we had like 12,000 customers that sign up. Not all of them use actually really the product, but we know several thousand use it. So we're very, very confident about the robustness of the product. It will start being used extensively in test and dev environments, VDI, and so on. A year later, and that was about the time we spoke last year, we shipped version 6.0. That came with even higher performance, all-flash support, really scalable snapshots and clones, rack awareness, and so on. And it was then when the product started taking off and being used more widely. And from that point on, as Jan Bing mentioned, we start having a much more aggressive release cadence. We shipped 6.1 in, when was that, September 2015, where we added stress cluster, 2-node robo configurations, health monitoring in box, and what else? Oh, yeah, of course, remote replication with 5-minute RPO. And that brings us to now. Actually, the product went GA last Tuesday, version 6.2, which is the biggest version since the initial launch, really. We are now introducing a whole range of features for space efficiency. We support end-to-end software checksums. We'll talk about all those things in detail. IPv6
so does that include
performance services.
T10 diff on?
No. We supported that before. Actually, since 6.0, we supported hardware-based checksums, and many of our customers, especially in the financial sector, have been using that.
Yep.
But it's a pain. You know, I know it's not easy. You have to find the right controller, the right devices, combine them. So that's why now we are shipping entirely software-based end-to-end checksums, and you'll see in a few minutes what I mean by end-to-end.
Is there a background scrub too?
Of course. So yeah, we'll talk about that. Hold your questions until, for another 5-10 minutes, because there are a couple of interesting things to discuss there. All right, let me move on. Some of the recent features. I'll start with stress cluster. As I said, this shipped last September. With this feature, you take a vSAN cluster, 16, 8, 32 nodes, 64, whatever you want, and you stretch it across 2 physical locations, as long as they are within a round-trip time of 5 milliseconds. What this offers you is high availability with an RPO of 0. There is synchronous replication between the 2 sites. This feature is integrated with HA, DRS, all the solutions of vSphere. So I'll give you more details about that, but essentially what is, and performance numbers later on, but what is happening here is that in order to deal with any split brain situations, we use an agent, a virtual machine, which is called a witness virtual machine, that needs to run in some third location. So for every virtual machine, for every object of a virtual machine, we have 2 replicas, as I said, one on each side. And there is a witness that lives on that witness VM. So if there is a split brain, for example, the 2 sides cannot talk to each other. And as you know, you need, in order to have a generic automated solution to that, you need a way to resolve that situation. So it is that witness that resolves any such conflict. So if the witness can talk to both of those sides, then it has to choose one. And as soon as it chooses that side, all the virtual machines fall over to that. If, of course, it can talk to only one side, chances are that the other one is really down, that side continues. HA will fall over all those VMs that were running on the other side to this one. But again, VMs starting with can run on either of those 2 sides. The latency to the witness VM is supported to be as high as 200 milliseconds round trip. And what else can I say? I know Chris has been asking since last year for more details. One interesting detail here is, you remember our distributed caching we were talking about last year, right? Here, because the latency between the two sites is much higher than a typical data center, we are clever. We do not read. We don't do that round-robin kind of reading we do in the typical uniform clusters. So we always read the data from the replica that is in the same site as where the VM runs. Of course, the writes have to go on both, right? So this is one key feature here. There is no real traffic to the witness VM, so your network there doesn't really have to be very, very beefy. It's only for the occasional metadata, and especially where there is a failover, is some metadata chatter that goes over that network. Anything else? I don't know, Chris, anybody, any more questions?
No, that makes sense. That's good.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into the details for this, but we took this architecture and we downsized it and we turned it into a 2-node robo offering, where some of the biggest retailers in the US actually deploying that as we speak on thousands of sites.
That was a really important move.
Yes, and actually we are doing a lot of good business. And I blogged about, you cannot imagine some places where this thing has found uses. I never imagined this. For the reasons you realize, I cannot disclose much information, but we have vSAN stress classes deployed on big naval ships because of the nature of redundancy they can get out of this. And all these guys apparently have 2 power supplies, port and starboard. So that was a perfect thing.
You know Curtis is going to ask about ships. Go on.
No. You mentioned about, deploying it in robo situations. Is it really a robo if you can get 5 milliseconds of latency between it?
No, actually, thank you. So, no, in that case,
different.
The latencies are for stress cluster, what I mentioned here.
Okay.
In the case of robo, actually it doesn't really matter that much, but we can support 5 milliseconds, but in those cases it's much lower. It's actually 2 boxes within the same store of a big retailer, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And in that case, the witness lives in traditionally all these retailers have this kind of hierarchical data center structure. The witness lives in the regional data center. The point there is these guys don't have any IT personnel on the stores, really. So they want an automated solution that if anything happens, like their applications continue running even if one box goes down. But for them, in the past, we tried to say, guys, come on, instead of 2, you can have 3 cheaper boxes. They're extremely, yeah, we want the cheapest boxes, but just 2 of those. So those guys are extremely cost conscious. That's why we offer that.
When you have 1,000 stores, $1,000 a store is $1 million.
I think 5,000 or 6,000 stores, yes.
And also the latency requirement there is much greater. It's 500 milliseconds instead of.
And for the witness, the latency requirement there, we bumped up to 500 milliseconds round trip time because they have really crappy connections sometimes. So we bump up the latency to the witness. Yeah, good point. Thanks, Rollinson. So. Of course, stress classes give you like a 0 RPO failover, but many customers, they also want disaster recovery to a remote data center. For example, we have many financials that use stress cluster between the lower Manhattan campus, but they have, or even we have a few that have between lower Manhattan and New Jersey. That's actually more common, indeed. Yeah. But they have another data center in the Midwest, and they want disaster recovery there. So we integrate vSphere replication strongly with vSAN. I know a bunch of people have been saying, but vSAN doesn't have remote replication. Well, we have vSphere replication. We integrate, even policies have been integrated. So, and we now support for vSAN RPOs of down to 5 minutes. So many customers configure what you see here. Stress cluster between the 2 data centers that are within typically metro distances, and then a remote asynchronous replication to data centers further out.
A quick question. So if you do have a failure and you need to come back and you're not sure whether the failure was partial, it could have been hardware failure, it could have been network, it could have been a number of different things. Correct. What's the recovery process to get back into operation from that point?
Are you referring to the stress cluster specifically?
Yes.
Yes, right. So you have your one site that survived up and running. All your VMs, according to your HA plan, have fallen over there. So, okay, perhaps a little degraded in terms of performance because of the double the load or so on. But one point to make here is, because what I said, that all that clustering integration, at least you can use the same over-provisioning you're planning with your HA workflows in the past that apply here too, right? Now you have your other side. You go, you fix your whatever, your networking, you bring things up, and then DRS, as soon as it sees the other hosts, are going to automatically start migrating now live your virtual machines back to the host where they had their affinity associated with.
Yeah, what I'm thinking more is things like the data that's out of date because you've done updates. And, is it just going to look at it and say, I already knew all of those disks at both sites, I just have to recover replicating the differences?
Correct, yes.
That sort of level of, how much do you have to put in to make it come back in that sense?
Yes, so from the vSAN now, as soon as the two sites get reconnected, immediately we rediscover all the hosts that, now the primary cluster is the one that has survived, right? So now we see what is the deltas of the data that have changed in the surviving side of the cluster, and only the deltas are resynchronized back. That's a good segue, actually, because I have a slide later on that discusses a little bit some of these recovery workflows and the performance specifically of those. Okay. Right.
Just for clarity on the RPO numbers that you got described there, is that for application consistent or crash consistent?
This is for crash consistent, the 5 minutes. Yeah. To do application consistency, as you know, VSS and those kind of things are not really designed to do application consistency every 5 minutes, are much more heavyweight. So the 5-minute RPO I'm talking about here is crash consistency, and specifically group crash consistency for all the objects of a VM.
And can you combine the two? So you could say, right, okay, yes, I'll accept crash consistency for 5 and then 1 hour for...
And that is how many of the customers do that. Essentially, they have application consistency every 1 hour, and then crash consistency every 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something like that. Yes, that is a very common use case. Correct.
Also point out that the 5-minute RPO is from vSAN to vSAN.
Yes.
Right. So it has the source and the endpoint have to be vSAN for that to work in that, to adhere to that sort of policy.
Yeah. Otherwise, the vSphere RPO is what, 10, 15 minutes?
10 to 15. Yeah, correct. Yeah. 15 is a regular.
and you're really talking in 5 minutes about granularity and not including the data transfer time, right?
No, we do the data transfer in between.
Right. So it's 5. Yeah. So
correct.
So
yes.
the real
5 minutes.
It's really 7, 10, something like that, because the data's got to get there and get.
No. Actually, and actually, I wrote that code years ago. So I have a scheduler.
I hit a nerve.
Yes, I really like that.
Yeah.
We have actually a pattern I'm very proud of on that. So we have a scheduler which actually monitors your network, the remote network, and sees how fast you can send data. And if you cannot catch up, according to your RPO, it will tell you, dude, you have not sized your network correctly. You need to beef it up because I cannot, for this 500 VMs you asked me to replicate with 5 minutes RPO, that you don't have enough bandwidth to send the deltas.
Yeah.
So we always send the deltas within the 5-minute RPO. So at any point in time, you can go back at most 5 minutes. Perhaps it could be shorter, right? Yeah. So we guarantee you an upper bound. And if you cannot meet that upper bound, we're going to warn you with those big, annoying yellow alarms will flash in vSphere.
You get bonus points, because usually when vendors say 5-minute RPO, they mean we snap every 5 minutes and then transfer.
Then we send the data. Yeah.
So it's really 10 or 15 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. And with us,
is end-to-end.
Yeah. And you
the data are persistent on the remote side before the 5-minute goal.
And
if you're not, we're going to really drive you crazy with our alarms.
I am pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So when you talk about the RPO, I'm able to go back to, say, 5 minutes ago or whatever, right? Can I go back to an hour ago?
Currently, we support up to 25
points in time. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and how are those points in time created?
They are created using snapshots.
Storage level snapshots?
Sorry?
Storage level snapshots?
Storage level snapshots.
Not VMFS snapshots?
No, in this case, it's vSAN level snapshots, which we discussed last year, and they're very scalable.
Yeah, I wasn't here last year. So.
Yeah, so yes, we have virtual SAN snapshots, which are, and we had graphs we discussed with the guys here, were very much more scalable than those, well, not so scalable VMFS level snapshots.
So can those snapshots help me in case, because one of the problems with, replication for DR is, I drop a VM and now, on accidentally, right?
Yes.
Howard spills his coffee on his keyboard.
We're all too familiar with that. You see, it doesn't use a keyboard anymore. There is a reason for that.
We just deleted 20 VMs, right? And then I just replicated the fact that I deleted 20 VMs. So I want to go back to before Howard showed up to work.
We support that. You do that. You recover your VMs in the remote site at the point you want, and then you can even migrate them back to the original point, fail them back, as we call it, without even disrupting the history you had on the remote site. And you can continue replicating again from where you were.
Okay. And 20, you said 26?
25.
25.
25.
Okay. I was 26 for some reason.
Yeah, actually, 24, 25.
I think it's either 25 or 24, not 26 for sure. I can tell you that.
Okay. So, and that allows me to go back how far?
Depends on your RPO. Yeah. Okay. 25 times your RPO. Right. So if your RPO is, 10 minutes, I don't know. You do that.
So keep in mind also, 5 minutes is the very minimum, but you have the range to go much longer as well, right? Yeah. So it's not like you're fixed at 5. And
because we talked about the 5-minute RPO and that was too tight for VSS, but the 1 hour RPO was. Yes. So can I have VSS integrated snapshots as part of that?
Absolutely. Yes. Actually, this has been working for years now with vSphere replication. And as I mentioned to Alex, this is how most of our customers, especially Windows users, that's how they use it. They have a schedule which you can have application consistent replicas, typically in the order of few hours. Because it's quite kind of disruptive, as you know, and I know you are very active in that space. And then in between them, they have finer grain, just crash-consistent snapshots, replicas. So typical numbers I've seen is like 15-minute crash-consistent RPO, and then 2-hour application-consistent RPO.
And Christos,
and you can see them through your,
Just a quick comment. I don't think that you need to keep all of those snaps on the recovery side, right? So you can keep 24, but you can select which ones you're actually going to keep, right? So you can just keep the application consistent, hourly snaps on the recovery side, even though you're doing every 5 minutes, right? So the 24 would, in that case, allow you to spend a full day, even though you have that 5-minute RPO.
Very good point.
Right.
We call this the retention policy, yes. Correct. So, and we have customers that have actually take one application consistent once a day.
Yeah.
And they keep like, a week or 2 weeks of worth of application consistent, and only they have, a few, a couple of, a few 15-minute RPO crash consistent for the last hour or something like that.
Right. And do you know if the snapshots, are they redirect on write, copy on write?
The snapshots are copy on write, yes. Okay. I'll be very happy to share with you technical material on that offline, yeah.
Okay. When you say did you know, Curtis?
What?
When you said did you know, or do you know, did you remember that he actually wrote? Hopefully, if anybody in the room's going to know, he should know.
So yeah, I'm an engineer, so you can blame me as well as praise me. I'll take the praise. Don't blame.